So, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to the global community out there. I'm super excited for this particular webinar because I really do believe that Tim Hughes, who is going to be getting up on our Nimble Soapbox to inspire and educate you about how you can become better, smarter, faster at relationships and selling, is unique in the world of people practicing um, the new art of selling. And sometimes I am hesitant to use the word social selling because it's such a buzzword, and I really do believe that it's just a temporary stake in the ground for a conversation about the new buyer journey and the new way we need to engage with them. But sometimes, Tim, I feel like when we talk about new ways, we're really talking about old ways. And I want to get into that with you. But first, I just want to introduce you. Tim Hughes is one of the most influential people in the art of social sales, and now has a practice where he teaches that if you were to go to his LinkedIn landing page, you'd see that he has accolades that go for the past 5 years as one of the most influential digital people in the world today. And he's done all that by essentially practicing what he preaches about inspiring and educating people on a daily basis about how they can become better, smarter, faster. Tim, welcome to our webinar.
Thank you, John. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I mean, it's fantastic to be able to share my experiences and share my journey with people.
Awesome. So we're going to try to make this as interactive as possible. I'm going to pass the baton over to Tim, where he can go ahead and start his presentation. But we'd love to have as many questions as possible. Please use the GoToMeeting question box. Also, we are going to make it demonstratable, where it won't be just Dax. Tim and I will actually be showing you some of the tools and techniques we use to identify people that matter, reach out in a relevant and authentic, pay-it-forward way, to set ourselves up as a trusted advisor so that when somebody makes a buying decision, they not only think of us, but they drag their friends with them. Tim, you've got the floor.
Thanks, John. Yeah, yes. First and foremost is that this is a practical session. So I've got a couple of slides to set the scene, to talk about why I think that social selling is really important. Some of the things that we're seeing right now in the marketplace, that's my company. And then I talk about how we use Nimble on a day-to-day basis to try and actually create the results that I'm going to talk to you about. Just so you're aware, I started on social 7 years ago. I've been in sales for 27 years. I've now got something like 160,000 followers on Twitter. I was part of a sales transformation in a large US IT company. I've now left that company and I've set up my own company with my co-founder Adam Gray, who's AG Social Media on Twitter, and we've set up a company called Digital Leadership Associates. And what we do is social. So we help organizations in their transformation to social at a senior level, but maybe about getting stakeholders together and understanding the importance of that. And also what we do is that we help people in terms of social selling. I'll mention it in a moment, but there's my book, which came out at the beginning of July, which became a bestseller on pre-order, which really talks about social and goes through the methodology. And what we do is that we practically apply that. So if you back up one slide, I know there's some people here from the US, but this picture here is a guy who's a UK athlete. And this is really about what this is about, because I think sometimes we can go down a rabbit hole and get lost in statistics and definitions of what social selling is about. And for me, this is the, what is social selling? Social selling, selling is about winning. It's about winning deals, it's about revenue, and it's about overachieving quota. And what happened with this athlete was that he was an Olympic gold hopeful. He went to Rio, and he's a Taekwondo expert, and he was winning to get the gold medal all the way through his particular bout until the final second when he was kicked and he lost, and he basically got a silver medal. Now, in selling, we don't get silver medals, there's only gold. And what we're looking for today is that little bit of competitive advantage, because I'm a sales guy and I don't like rejection, I don't like losing. And what I want to do is that I want to be in a position where I can get the most out of my time during the day, and I will be winning the deals. And unfortunately, that means that people have to lose, but it's not going to be me. And that's what we're here. That's what I see social selling about. It's about giving you that advantage so you win. So I've written a book called Social Selling: Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers. If you move up on the next slide. What happened was that, as I said, I was involved in a sales transformation at a large US tech company. And I took all of the things that I'd learned, all the positive things and all the challenges, and poured it into that book. And that's all about providing people with a workbook on how you can actually use social selling yourself. It's not one of these books like Matt, my co-author, and I found was, people said there's a problem, but they didn't give you an answer. What we try and do here in this book is actually give you an answer. And it's designed to be read by people that are not necessarily social selling ninjas, that people that are used to it, are new to it. What we don't do. This is not a book about personal branding. It's not about how you set yourself up on LinkedIn. It's about how you create various things, community and influence, which I'll talk about a little bit later on in the presentation. So if you want to move on to the next slide. So we're in a situation where our buyers are now better informed than ever. Everybody now pretty much has a mobile phone. Some people have two. If you want to buy something, you will generally start your journey online, probably on Google or in social media. And if you look at some of the latest statistics on the next slide, what you'll see is that people like CEB, so the people that wrote the Sales Challenger, are saying that research shows that most people are 57% of the way through the buying process before they actually need to actually speak to a salesperson. So in the past, when people came to you, they needed to get 80% of the information. Now it's only something like 20%. So we need to do things, and one of the clever things is that what we need to do is actually move ourselves to the left of this graph, so that when people are actually doing their online research, they find us. And if you're buying anything, whether it's a car, it's a TV, you probably don't know about these things. And what you want to do is you need to be educated. And if you can find somebody that will actually educate you and you trust them, you're likely to buy from them.
Yeah,
so this allows you to get in above the traditional sales funnel, talk to these people, and close the deal, because that's what we're selling. Sorry, John, go ahead.
I really think that this is a critical part of the whole conversation that we're going to be having today, is setting yourself up as a trusted advisor and not being a salesperson. I believe that service is the new sales, and the more people you could outgrow, the more you will grow. And if you can be the person who the buyer is going to learn how to be better, smarter, faster, then when they do want to buy those products or services, they will automatically buy from you, and that's, I think, the crux of what we're talking about here today is not selling, serving, and becoming a trusted advisor by getting involved earlier in that conversation.
Yes, and what we're finding is that people are spending more and more time online. I've got research from SAP saying that people are 85% of the way through the journey. I'm aware of people that have just phoned up salespeople and said, I want to buy, and that's something like, they're 95% of the way through the journey already before they actually buy.
There's a really good PDF on this called McKinsey Customer Journey. If you guys Google that, McKinsey Customer Journey, it's a 25-page document that clearly explains the new customer journey and how you can get more involved with it.
Thank you. If you could move to the next slide, please, and the next one, please. So that's some of the things that the research shows. Some of the things that my company has come across. We were involved in this research, and what we're seeing is that most people, that is the workforce between the age of 25 and 44, which is what most people are in the workforce, is that those people generally will use social media for search for things or get access to information rather than websites. And what we're seeing is that we're seeing a switch over and a change in society, and that's kind of started with text messaging, because people were able to go out and ask their network questions. So if we take, for example, when I was at school, if I couldn't do my physics homework, I had to ask my parents, or I was pretty stuck. Now what people could do is that they can actually text message people, or they can send people messages on social media. So it means that people are able to ask questions, and that's how they buy as well. So it's not just about going to Google and searching, but it's asking questions of the network, and you need to be in those networks when people ask those questions. We're also seeing things like there is a correlation between having a high SSI score and sales and quota attainment. That's not necessarily because you have a high SSI score, it's because you have the correct behaviors from a social perspective. And if you just go through and tab through some of these, there's a build on this. We're working with organizations where they're seeing that by using social, they're actually getting an increase of 20 to 30% in sales. We're also seeing social being used right across the organization, not just in sales and marketing, but also in service. And it can be used in companies that are getting inbound service requests. And a great quote from Laurie Moore at Consumer Affairs, which is that, you know, if you're not social selling, you're leaving money on the table. So if you want to move to the next slide. So we just very quickly, we did a campaign with an IBM reseller, and what they wanted was to be known for. There's a particular financial services fintech thing called blockchain, and we said, right, okay, we will make you famous for blockchain. So we used our own techniques, and if you move to the next slide, what you'll see is we created a whole bunch of content and put that out on LinkedIn and various social profiles, and you can see the sort of response they've got in terms of views and shares. And if you move quickly to the next slide, some of the things that we did on Twitter. So this left-hand graph showed that they had 30 mentions over a period in September. If you now move to for the next graph, what you'll see is what happened when we took over the social, and they've now had something like a 4,000% increase in their share of voice over social. So if you move to the next slide, this is where we actually compare what they were famous for. So in the first piece, they're famous for, not quite sure why they're famous for those things, but actually what we've been able to do by using social is make sure that they're actually famous for the things that they want to be famous for, which is blockchain. And if you move quickly to the next slide, what you'll see is a comparison of the share of voice before we took over, and now a comparison of the share of voice using social. So it's gone from 39% to 84% compared to their competitors. So just by using social as a tool, what we're able to do is to completely change the game for people and the way they're perceived in the marketplace, and the way that the customers will actually interact and find them. So in terms of what is social selling, but on the next slide I'm going to show you what isn't social selling, which is where someone sends you a LinkedIn request and then you get one of these, which is, I don't even know what this stuff is, and I don't know why they're sending it me, because it takes up my time, and I'm not going to buy any of this.
It's the
Um,
worst of
and,
cold calling.
uh, and I know what happened. I see it so many times, and people think that social selling is selling over social, and it's not. So if we move quickly on to how you can get started. So from my perspective, a network is the network is power. Building a network around me, the people that I'm connected with, working with those people is really important. And not only is it about the network, but it's also about how you engage. If you think about the old time networking events where you would go along and swap business cards and drink, have conversations with people, and I'm English, so I would drink tea, and you'd probably drink coffee, but you'd have a conversation with people, and you'd swap business cards, and you'd build a relationship, and that's what we're doing on social is building that relationship and building that rapport. And what we do, Adam, who's in the that we have here is in the picture is my co-founder and I, is that we use Nimble as the way to actually create this. So, John, if you want to have a quick demo of how you see using Nimble as the way or the place to start to actually bring in information, create engagements, and have conversations.
You bet, Tim. Thank you so much for that setup. I really do believe that relationships are messy today and that they may start in one channel and shift to another and another and another. And ultimately, it is about building pay it forward relationships that result in you being top of mind. So when they make a buying decision, they think of you. And, one of the places that I do this on a daily basis is I do this by sharing content to inspire and educate other people about how they could become better, smarter, faster. I call it, if you teach people to fish, they'll figure out you sell fishing poles. So what I do on a daily basis is I share content that helps people learn how to be better at sales and marketing and technology and startups. And what this does is it generates +1 likes, comments, retweets, or otherwise engagement. And essentially, this is the start of a conversation. And the way that I do that, and I really think that this is something that's entirely replicatable by any other business person, is Tim, I'm a computer science major. I wasn't great in the liberal arts, and so I'm not a fantastic writer. And congratulations on writing your first book. Was beating on me to do that, and I haven't done it yet. But the thing is that I have so many friends that are so great at building content. What I do is I identify influencers and I share their content. Influencers who are influential in and around the areas of promise of Nimble, which is thought leaders in sales, marketing, social media, etc. I share their content and hashtag the content appropriately for the area of promise. In this case, social selling. In this case, it's Kevin Tully, who's the person who's the influencer, and that not only builds relationships with people learning how to be better at sales and marketing, but also with the influencers as well, and all that then generates content and conversation and community that results in us getting 80,000 unique visitors per month on our website, all without marketing. And so if we start by thinking about content as fishing, then what we want to do is we want to reel in these relationships and turn these connections into living and breathing records. So here's Pernil, who's asking about the webinar that we're doing here today, and all I have to do is Nimble her. Nimble is a tool that essentially works for you by building itself from the data you already have in your business, which I think we all basically live in Outlook, Address Book, or Google Contacts. That's the heart of our relationships, is really our inbox. And Tim, there's a stat that I really love, but it's kind of sad. There's 225 million global businesses and less than 1% use any CRM. Most people's CRM is their inbox or a spreadsheet. And I think that's because we have to work for our CRM. We have to basically Google people
Yes.
before we meet with them. And inevitably, people typically just go straight to the LinkedIn identity to understand who somebody is. And that's a great place to start with me. But if you really want to connect with me, I think that you're better off learning about me across all my different identities. And I think a picture tells 1,000 words, and this is how I learned that you were into vinyl, because I walked through your Instagram and I saw the photographs of that. And so ultimately, if you want to understand another human being, you need multiple points of understanding. And so I don't think that if somebody went and reached out to this Nabel gentleman and basically tried to connect with him by sending him a LinkedIn invite without ever adding value to his journey beforehand, it'd be a cold call. And that's why I think that relationships typically start in one place, like Twitter, and then basically they then shift into a LinkedIn connection, and then to a meeting invite, and then to a series of emails and conversations. And if you're doing what I'm telling you to do right, the relationship deepens and turns into a Facebook connection and a Instagram connection, and ultimately you stay top of mind through your shared passion, plan, and purpose. And I call it the 5 Fs: family, friends, food, fun, and frolicking. These are the things you stay connected on. But the thing is you need to have a system of record to manage these people and their relationships, so that you have this that you could then take with you wherever you're working. And that's what I use Nimble for. So if I want to know more about Nabel, what I do is I basically turn Nimble on, and Nimble will bring up the record for that person, giving me the context and insights that I need in order to be able to reach out in an authentic and relevant way. So with Nimble, I have the complete history of email and calendar interactions that my team and I have done. It gives me the ability to walk in his digital footprint and add value to his conversation. It gives me the ability to get a smart summary on him. But the most important thing about business is follow up and follow through. And I think it's the basics that wins games. And when you talked about the aspect of business cards at a networking meeting, the biggest problem with a connection is not following up. And so what you need to do is schedule those follow-up tasks and things that you need to do in order to do what you say you're going to do and turn that connection into a measurable business outcome. And I think the biggest cause of failure of CRM tools and even contact tools is that you have to go to them to use them. They're not working with you wherever you're working. And that's basically why I love being able to have a CRM that works for me by building itself and then works with me everywhere I work.
I think that's really important, John, I think you can, people spend too much time sitting and working in LinkedIn, and it's only 30% of your social graph. If you think about your contact information, you'll have it in email, you'll have it in Instagram, you'll have it in Facebook, and what Nimble allows you to do is basically bring that all together. So you can look at somebody look somebody up on LinkedIn like you did there, but if you bring them into Nimble, what Nimble does is it goes out and gets all the information and brings it together. You don't have to type anything in. It works with you. It's saving you time, and you can then start. And quite often people have not necessarily different personas, but they'll post different things on Instagram to Facebook, and if I'm aware of people that have gone to meetings and they didn't know that they were calling upon the brother-in-law of one of their friends, because they'd actually looked in LinkedIn, and you wouldn't necessarily have a LinkedIn connection with a brother-in-law because you're connected to them on Facebook.
Right. And I'm going to share a little story with you about the power of social. If somebody sends you an email, what are the odds of you actually seeing that in today's overconnected, overcommunicated world?
For me, it's I've got so many different Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and people contact me in all kinds of places. So.
Right, but what I'm saying is that email is almost like putting a grain of sand in a bucket of sand. It's you need to communicate on whatever channel is going to be most effective for that person. And if I want to reach out to another person, in many cases, I have Facebook connections for the business relationships I have, and I could get a faster response by reaching out on a Facebook message than I can on a email or even a LinkedIn message. And this is an example of a relationship that started in a soft way through a connection on Twitter, eventually became a LinkedIn connection, eventually became a Facebook connection. And Seth is a thought leader in the accounting community, and he's speaking at the QuickBooks conference, and now I'm speaking at the QuickBooks conference, all because of that soft connection that turns into a firmer connection. And I think the firmest connections are around our shared family, friends, food, fun, and frolicking. And so I think it's important to maintain a presence on all the different platforms and then communicate on whatever channel is most effective for the person that you want to stay in touch with. What do you think?
I think it's critical that you know you need to be you need nowadays you need to be on actually on lots of channels, but you've got to also maintain them. What I've seen certainly with Nimble is the ability to actually manage that. And one of the things that we really like, we being my partner and I, is that when you're actually using email, it's automatically pulled into the record of who you're dealing with. So if you're working from a team selling perspective and we're working on a particular account, we know that the communication's gone out, and I'm not having to, you know, did we send that email or not? It's there in Nimble already.
Right. And ultimately, I think what you just said is so important is you need context and insight in order to be able to engage effectively. So if I'm sitting here inside of, let's say this particular identity, I happen to be in Facebook right now, and I go and look at this person, Nimble knows where I'm at, and it automatically brings up the record, and I can then see the history of interactions that the team and I have had on email, calendar, and social. I call that context. Because for you to be able to engage intelligently with another person, you need context and insights. Context says, who is this person? Context says the history of interactions that you and the team have had. Insights is who are they and what their business about. If I have those two things, the history and the connection status, then when I do communicate with them and message them here to congratulate them on their 10 years of their business, I could then communicate in a relevant and authentic way that references our historical relationship and possibly asks for a next step that's sort of relevant to the situation at hand. And you can't do all that without having to go back to your CRM or your contact tool to be able to then reference all that stuff, which you won't do. And so I think that as we start having larger and larger networks, that we need to have tools that facilitate our connection across all these different places. And so that's, I think, why it's important to be organized, because I really do believe that it's the basics that wins games, and I think that most business people fail at doing the basic things. How many times have you gotten a LinkedIn connection from somebody and there was no follow-up?
Many times.
Or worse yet, you got a LinkedIn connection and 5 seconds later there's an email trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love the idea of community and influence. Tell me what your thoughts are on this.
Okay, so this is something that I talk about in the book, which I'm a great believer. I'm very passionate about that salespeople should create for themselves. Now, sometimes community can be seen as some sort of hippie thing, but this is actually a way that salespeople can actually use this and think about it as a way of creating more deals and more leads for themselves. So from an influence perspective, everybody has influence. If someone has ever come up to you and said, "What did you think of the new Star Trek film?" or "What did you think of that about this particular restaurant or this car?" You have influence, and everybody does. And what you need to do is that you can create influence online. And what happens is that people therefore will be attracted to you. And from a sales perspective, we talked about this earlier on, about how we can actually elevate ourselves up the pipeline, so we're actually connecting with people, educating them as they're going through the process of looking for products and services. We might not all be thought leaders, but what we're able to do is actually build up influence so that people actually come to us as we do in terms of getting inbound. And from a sales perspective, every piece of inbound I get, I'm not having to actually do the outbound and actually making and going out and contacting people.
And this is what you do on a daily basis, is you essentially share content to inspire and educate other people about how they could become better, smarter, faster. So you're teaching them to fish. And then what happens is, if you look at your followers, 160,000 followers, you've got a tribe, a community of people that you've built where you basically are their trusted advisor, and I'm sure that you get a ton of business. at your agency, because when people want to bring in somebody to help them, they want the best. And what you're
Yes.
demonstrating is that you're the best. And for anyone out there listening to this today, you've forgotten more about your products and services and than your customers will ever know in their life. Imagine if you gave your knowledge away on a daily basis, and you do this every morning you get up, you read articles, because you're passionate about what you do. Just begin to share that stuff on a regular basis, and it's so easy to do. We're not going to get into all the different tools that you would do these things with, but just as an example, if I wanted to share this website, which is not necessarily appropriate, I'd be sharing an article typically. It's easy to do, to queue that stuff up and then begin to share that across your various identities. And essentially what you've done, Timothy, so well is set yourself up as one of the top thought leaders in social selling, because you're dedicated to helping other people become better, smarter, faster, to build a tribe, a community that gives you influence in the areas of promise of products and services that you sell.
And community is something that actually, from a sales perspective, people shouldn't underestimate it. If you think about when my girlfriend and I recently moved to a house, and we moved into a new area, and immediately we asked the neighbours and said, can you recommend a cleaner or a gardener or all of these things? And they would recommend these people. And if we translate that into a sales perspective, what we should be doing is creating a community where if people say, you want social selling, you need to be helped around your organization, you need to talk to Tim Hughes.
Yeah.
And again, what you're doing is another way of creating demand, and what you do is you're changing your demand generation engine from pushing stuff out ultimately to pull.
And I want to share a story about that for a second. So I think you know that 30 years ago I helped invent CRM and contact management with a company called Goldmine.
Yes.
So back in the day, we created the world's first relationship manager with sales and market automation. How do you sell something people don't even know that they need? And so what we did is we went after the influencer of our core prospect, and started out as the Novell reseller. That was a networking operating system. And then we went after their trusted advisor, their accountants. And so this gentleman, Gene Marks, who happens to be one of the top thought leaders in CRM and accounting today, was one of my #1 Goldmine resellers. And I'm bringing up this point only because I think that in too many cases, people are focused on prospects and customers and using sales and marketing to do that. But if you can think about the influencer of your customer, then rather than you having to go out and get 10 eyeballs from your prospects, you could basically get 10 influencers who have each of them a network of 1,000 prospects for you. And so when you start talking about influence, it's not just about influence to get access to prospects and customers, but you should be building relationships with the influencers of your prospects and customers.
Absolutely.
And that really is, if you think about the networking groups, that's what we used to do back in the day. Is it was a collection of business professionals, the accountant in the town, the lawyer in the town, the real estate guy in the town, and the technology reseller in the town, getting together and exchanging, building relationships, building trust, and basically exchanging referrals. But you can now do it digitally.
And we've all been in a situation where we've bought things, a new television or a new car, and we've turned to people and said, you bought a new television recently. What do you think of it?
Yeah.
And I'm just using a very simple example, but I mean, if you're going to go out and buy an enterprise piece of software, you will turn to people, or people who are looking to buy that will turn to their network and ask that question. And quite often, and remember that influence isn't just about Gartner and Forrester. There are people who, what I would call micro-influencers, and I would include myself in that. And I get people coming to me saying, I want to buy a new CRM system. What one do you recommend?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now,
So go ahead.
No, I was going to move on, but
Yeah, I think the next slide that you had in here was basically the modern technology tech stack for salespeople. And so I want to delve into that a little bit and talk about about how you deal with the onslaught of leads that you're going to generate if you do what we tell you to do. So if you practice what we're saying, i.e., basically set up identities on all the different places that make sense for your constituency, just as I do on Twitter and Tim does on his various landing pages. And then you begin to share content to inspire and educate other people about how you can help them become better, smarter, faster. You're going to generate more engagement than you can manage. I mean, the reality is you're going to have more leads, more opportunities filling you up. How do you then manage that? So basically, we're generating 80,000 unique visitors per month on our website, converting at 10% to trial and 20% to paid with zero marketing and zero salespeople. How do we manage that? Well, when you drive people to your store, to your website, whatever you do, you need to do something with that. So I'd like to talk about the modern sales and marketing technology stack and how you can individually or as a team begin to manage these conversions. So typically in that stack, you would need to have some sort of market automation system to nurture that lead until it's lead qualified. And I call that MailChimp to Marketo. There's a variety of tools of sophistication that you could use to capture a lead and nurture it over time. Once you get that lead qualified, then what you want to do is put it into your CRM system and tell your sales reps to go get it. Well, your typical CRM system is just a dead database that you have to type all the data in. You do the work. So you then have to go and Google who that person is and then go log what you know about that person in the company database. Then the next thing you need to do is you need to go out and outreach. So essentially you need to reach out and build a conversation. And let's hope that you're not giving your salespeople a market automation tool to outreach, because then you'll be sending emails that look like this one-to-many email from Infusionsoft that somebody sent me, and I throw these away on a daily basis. What you want to be able to do is you want to be able to reach out in a relevant and authentic way with emails that come from your email to their email with templated and tracked email. So here's an example. If I was going to go ahead and send an email to Tim, I could easily template that and send that out, and then when you open or click it, it would then basically give me the signals. So for that, you basically need some sort of sales intelligence software, and that's basically software that tells you who somebody is and what their business is about, and there's a variety of tools that can do that. And then you need the ability to outreach at scale in a relevant, authentic way, so they call that email tracking or sales enablement software. And so if you go and you look at all of the modern technology tech stack that you need to use in order to do modern sales and marketing, I think it's a little overwhelming. So let's take a look at all the tools we just talked about. We talked about some type of list building software, some contact enrichment software, some segmentation, email tracking, and pre-call research and CRM. Each of these tools is going to cost you $25 to $150 per user per month. And by the time you got done adding all that stuff up, it's going to be too complex for most of your sales reps to use because they don't really talk to each other. And that's why I think you need to look at something that combines social sales and marketing into a simplified platform that's affordable and fun and easy to use. And that's one of the reasons why I got back in the business after being a dad for 10 years and raising 3 babies, is because I really believe that contact management and CRM is still a little broken. And I say they're broken because when you go to a contact record in Office 365 or Google Apps for Work, it doesn't tell you anything about the contact because email and calendar are separate, as are social. And in order for me to understand who somebody is and what their business is about, you need to have that context and insight. So I could easily hover on any name, anywheres, and be able to get that. And the most important thing to do is that follow up and follow through. And so I think that listening to what we're talking about today is that you want to build relationships by understanding who somebody is and staying top of mind as a trusted advisor. If you do all the things we're telling you, you're going to get a tribe that you're going to build, not indifferent than the one Timothy and I have built. And if you want to be able to turn that tribe of prospects, customers, and influencers into a measurable business outcome, you need to think of your community around yourself like a garden. And you need to get out there and till it and nurture it on a daily basis. And I'd love you to take this away, Tim. I'd love you to sort of close us out with your thoughts on that. Do you have some slides in your deck that sort of close out some of these thoughts?
I don't. In terms of some of the things that picking up on what you've just said, when we started our company, we went out and started buying lots of different bits of software, and we've actually switched most of it. Well, we switched it all off apart from Nimble, and we're just running our business on Nimble because it provides us with the ability to see out into our network and manage the community. And I agree with you on those things. Now, one of the things that we often find within social selling is that people really don't spend the time. They'll set up their LinkedIn profile, and that's about it. And it's kind of like a tick box exercise. And what we need to do is something far greater than that, which is build our own influence, build our community. And by having those things, what we're able to do is change the sales process from push to pull. And you will start finding that you will get more leads and more leads quicker.
Yeah, yeah, and ultimately it's about doing your homework. And I loved that that story that you told about. In the old days, we used to go in somebody's office and look at their walls. Today, we're doing it electronically. But the problem is we're doing it in 6 different tabs in our browsers and 3 different apps on our desktop. So I think that we all live in Office 365 or Google Apps for Work. That's our contact tool, our email tool, our calendar tool. But the thing is that we also live wherever our customers are having conversations today, and then we have our sales and marketing tools that we need to use in order to, do that sales process. And I think that today, if I want to reach out to Russell, there's a variety of ways that I could do that, and I could basically choose how I do that by using a platform like Nimble. But one of the things that I love about the things that Nimble does specifically is when you put a name in Nimble, it automatically maps the identity on people and company. It brings the data down and keeps the data up to date on a daily basis, building this digital dossier that tells me who somebody is, where they're from, most importantly, what they're influential in, which is like auto tags that allow me to segment people intelligently. And then I could do things like segmenting out. And I want to leave you with an example, Tim, that I did recently at a conference. Microsoft invited me to speak at their World Partner Conference, WPC 16. And what I did is I went and found a list of people from last year's conference, and there's a lot of ways to find these Twitter lists, but they're very, very powerful. I took this Twitter list of WPC.
I love this, John. I just think it's so brilliant at being able to bring contacts together.
Yes, yes.
And using the power of things like Twitter lists on Twitter to actually help you sell stuff. I mean, this is social selling.
Right. And so what I did is I imported this Twitter list with Nimble's Smart Contacts app of these 3,600 influencers from last year's conference. And when I import a name into Nimble, Nimble automatically maps that person's background information, including their areas of influence, and all those names were then in Nimble, where I was able to then segment out a subset. So I'm just going to go in and show you how I did that. So WPC 15, here's the Twitter list I imported. There's 3,600 names in there. It takes those singular Twitter identities and makes them into rich people and company records. I could do wonderful things like sorting the last contacted date, which gives me relevancy. But what I did is I basically broke out a subset of people that I actually have a connection with, or my team does, and then I took that subset and I reached out to them with a authentic and relevant message. And the message that I reached out to them on was inviting them to my TED Talk on social selling in Toronto at that. And I was able to do that by basically sending this group message to them, and the group message came from my email to their email. And when I did do that, it was this very simple message that essentially talked about coming out to the conference, and if they didn't have time to meet me at the presentation, to schedule a time to meet later. It resulted in a 50% open rate on that email, which For those of you who know about marketing open rates, typical is 1 to 3%. If it's a list that you send to often, maybe 15, but 50% is outrageous. I scheduled 25 meetings at that conference, and it resulted in Microsoft making the decision to start reselling Nimble with Office 365 through their resellers. And all that was essentially because I was able to identify people that matter, reach out in a relevant and authentic way that resulted in a measurable business outcome. And I'm going to show you one more example of this. So let's go to your Twitter account for a second. And I'm going to teach you how you can find more people like somebody, because ultimately, if I want to find more people like Tim, because Tim talks to people like himself, so if I'm looking for a CEO or of a software company or whatever it is, I could go to their Twitter account, I could go to their list. First off, I can see the kind of people you're interested in, which is interesting because these are lists that you build or subscribe to. But then if I want to find more people like you, I could easily go in here and find them. And so here's a list of superstar entrepreneurs. And if I want to basically reach out to these people, I could very easily import those people into my Twitter, into my Nimble account. Nimble will automatically enrich those people's records with their people and company information. And then I could begin to reach out in relevant and authentic ways. Now, I might not send them a cold call email directly, but I might begin to connect with them by following them, by adding value to the conversation. And eventually, I'm not even going to have to call Rob because he's going to end up calling me.
Perfect.
So let's see if we have any questions from the audience, because we've got about 5 minutes left. Let's see. I'm just going through them. There's a statement here by Daryl. He's going to order the book later today. Can you send me a link so I could share to one of my LinkedIn groups? Yep. We'll definitely share that with you, Daryl. On the topic of group messaging using Twitter lists, I found the vast majority of Twitter contacts do not provide email, making group messaging Nimble somewhat impotent. How can I overcome this obstacle? That is a great observation, Gino. And one of the things that we will be providing in a upcoming version of Nimble is the ability to surface people's email addresses. So here's these 123 people that I want to message. So I'm going to go ahead and send the group message. What you'll notice is that in the top here, there's 78 people without an email. There will be a button here that essentially says to basically input their emails, and we'll do that using some new technology that enables us to identify emails for people, and you'll be able to buy those emails with data credits. So I hope that helps and addresses that. Timothy, do you see any questions in there that we could answer real quick?
I've just put a link to Amazon.com for my book. It is, if you're listening in other countries, it's on every single Amazon platform. If you use Amazon.co.uk or Norway or whatever, it's on every single Amazon platform. I'm not sure that there's any other questions.
Okay. Great. So I think it's a great idea for anybody listening today to follow Tim on Twitter, because Tim on a daily basis inspires and educates other people about how they can become better, smarter, faster. And if you want to learn more about social selling, just listen to what he's sharing, and actually you could begin to share the things he shares and get to know some of the people that he follows, because ultimately Tim has curated a list of people that he finds inspirational and educational, and all you'd have to do is you could use a program like Nimble to begin to walk in Tim's digital footprint, add value to his conversation, and connect with the people that he's connecting to, and eventually if you do this properly, you actually will become one of those thought leaders as well. And I often, I'm going to leave you with a story about what social selling is and how it relates to cocktail parties. So when you go to a business function, Well, we've learned everything we need to learn about social selling by from our moms, our grandmothers, and our peers as we grew up. When you go to a cocktail party, a business function, you don't walk in the room and say, "Hey, anybody want to buy some Nimble?" No, you walk into the room and you assess the situation. You look around and you identify people that you might want to connect with, and then what you do is you go by and you stand adjacent to them and you begin to listen to the conversation, and eventually you begin to add value to the conversation, and people are then going to look at you and go, "Well, Tim, what do you do?" And you basically go, "Well, I just so happen I do this, that, and the other thing," and they're inviting you in, and then what happens is when new people walk in the room, they see you with the other influencers, and all of a sudden you are one of those thought leaders. So if you want to build trust and leadership in your industry today, all you have to do is begin to walk in the digital footprint of other thought leaders in your space and share their content, add value to their conversation, and you'll immediately build your brand, your network will help you achieve your net worth. Timothy, you have any closing thoughts?
Yes. If you look on there, look, 17 5-star customer reviews on that book. I mean, that's a must buy, John.
I bought it.
You did, yeah.
So first off, Tim, sorry, I keep saying Timothy. I, you know what it is? I look at your LinkedIn page and I see that, and so I immediately sort of say that, but I know that the parentheses is Tim. But Tim, thank you so much for joining
You're welcome.
our Nimble community today. I love the way that you describe what you do, and I think that the clients that hire you and the people that read your book are lucky to be able to get access to an expert with your depth in sales, in brand and networking, and in social.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Great. Thank you so much for everybody for coming. We'll be sending out a recording for this to everybody who subscribed. Good luck and good selling.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.